is Top Accolade Global News Updates. I am Soibifa Jackrich. Australia on Monday said it would tighten visa rules for international students and low-skilled workers that could halve its migrant intake over the next 2 years as the government looks to overhaul what it said was a broken migration system. Under the new policies, international students would need to secure higher rating on English tests, and there would be more scrutiny on a student's second visa application that would prolong their stay. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese over the weekend said Australia's migration numbers needed to be wound back to a sustainable level, adding that the system is broken. O'Neill said the government targeted reforms were already putting downward pressures on net overseas migration and will further contribute to an expected decline in migrant numbers. The decision comes after net immigration was expected to have peaked at a record 510,000 in 2022 to 2023. Official data showed it was forecast to fall to about 250,000 in 2024 to 2025 and 2025 to 2026, roughly in line with the pre-COVID levels, but the sudden influx of foreign workers and students has exacerbated pressure on an already tight rental market. With homelessness on the rise in the country, a survey done for the Sydney Morning Herald newspaper on Monday said 62% of Australian voters said the country's migration intake was too high, long reliant on migration to supply what is now one of the tightest labour markets in the world. Australia's Labour government has pushed to speed up the entry of highly skilled workers and smooth their paths to permanent residency. Once Marion Parks found out she needed intensive dental work, 5-year-old decided her best course of action was to leave her small English village to have implants in Istanbul. Parks is one of the thousands of British people going abroad for dentistry, where once they travel for cosmetic work to achieve the perfect smile. Now, many are going for basic dental treatment that they say they cannot get in Britain. Famously, the butt of jokes about bad teeth, Britain has a shortage of dentists, ranking third from bottom among 22 of the OECD's mostly rich nations in terms of access in 2021. Problems with the government funding system have compounded the issue, meaning millions of people cannot access a low-priced dentist in the state-run National Health Service (NHS). With the cost of private dentistry prohibitive for many, the crisis have added to a sense of malaise in Britain, where a treasured national institution such as the NHS is in perma-crisis, with staff on strike and the cost of living rocketing. A parliamentary report in July said in extreme cases, people were pulling out their own teeth, something it called totally unacceptable in the 21st century. Charities warned that other ailments will be missed without regular dentistry access. There are no official statistics on dental tourism from Britain, but interviews with 6 companies in the highly fragmented industry shows UK dental tourism is either at record highs for those companies or growing rapidly. China and Vietnam are set to agree this week on upgraded rail links and other infrastructure, possibly including digital projects, officials said. In moves that would bring Hanoi closer to Beijing as great powers jostle for influence in Vietnam. The announcements are expected during President Xi Jinping's visit to Hanoi from Tuesday, the first in 6 years to the Southeast Asian neighborhood, and shortly after US President Joe Biden traveled to the Vietnamese capital in September to strengthen bilateral ties. China is ready to offer grants to Vietnam to boost the railway between Kunming and the Vietnamese port city of Haiphong and other transport links from South China to Hanoi. Vietnamese state paper Toi Tre reported, citing the Chinese ambassador to Vietnam, Xiong Bu. He said China was ready to provide non-refundable aid for these projects. The paper reported late on Sunday in an offer that, if confirmed, would represent a major concession to a country that is traditionally loath of taking loans. It is, however, unclear whether grants would come with loans and the share of both. A sizable offer of grant could also be perceived as a blow to the United States and other Western backers of infrastructure projects in Vietnam, who under a climate plan have offered mostly loans at market values to help Vietnam reduce its coal use. Vietnam is estimated to hold the world's second largest deposit of those strategic minerals, which are at the most crucial for electric vehicles and wind turbines. China is by far the world's biggest producer and refiner of rare earths, but it's unclear what deal could be reached on that, as Beijing is usually reluctant to share its refining technology and Hanoi largely prevents export of unprocessed rare earths. Detroit's only district election in Hong Kong that barred opposition Democrats from the ballot sheets amid a national security squeeze had a record low voter turnout of 27.5%, as many voters spawned what was seen as an undemocratic poll. The sharp slide in turnout since the last such election in 2019 comes after Beijing imposed a sweeping national security law that has been used to clamp down on dissent and overhauled the electoral system to shut out Democrats and other liberals. The previous lowest turnout was 35.8% in 1999. 4 years ago, at the last such election during Hong Kong's mass pro-democracy protests, a record 71% turnout brought about a landslide victory for the Democratic camp in a fiercely contested poll. For this election, directly elected seated were slashed by nearly 80%, while all candidates were required to undergo national security background checks and secure nominations from 2 pro-government committees. At least 3 pro-democracy and non-pro-establishment groups, including moderate and even some pro-Beijing figures, failed to meet those thresholds. An unprecedented electronic poll register system failed, caused some disruptions, and an eventual switch to a manual system, with polling times extended by 90 minutes till midnight. The Electoral Commission said the extension wasn't linked at all to the turnout rates. Security was tight. With over 10,000 police deployed, at least 6 people were arrested for alleged offenses, including posting online for people to cast invalid ballots or to incite others to disrupt the polls, according to statements from the police and the city's anti-corruption authority. China's TikTok has agreed to spend $840 million to buy most of Indonesian tech conglomerate GoTo's e-commerce units, a move that appears to allow it to restart its online shopping business in Southeast Asia's largest economy. It also said it will invest further in the business Tokopedia, which is Indonesia's biggest e-commerce platform, for a total outlay of $1.5 billion. TikTok had been forced to close its relatively new e-commerce service, TikTok Shop, in Indonesia after the country's banned online shopping on social media platform in September, citing the need to protect smaller merchants and users' data. The new partnership will commence with a pilot period carried out in close consultation with and supervision by relevant regulators, the company said in a joint statement. Under the deal, TikTok, which is owned by China's ByteDance, will buy 75.01% of Tokopedia and inject TikTok Shop's Indonesia business into the enlarged Tokopedia entity. Officials at Indonesia's Trade Ministry did not respond to requests for comments. Many of Indonesia's more than 270 million people are active social media users, and TikTok has been looking to translate its 125 million user base into a significant source of e-commerce revenue. TikTok Shop is currently available in only a few countries, including the United States, Britain, and Singapore, according to its website. The deal will be concluded by the first quarter of 2024, and Tokopedia will receive a $1 billion promissory note from TikTok that can be used to fund working capital needs, the company said. Tokopedia competes with Shopee, owned by Singapore headquartered Sea, and Lazada, owned by Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba. That is the size of top accolade global news updates. You can follow us on our social media platforms as displayed on your screen. Happy Monday.